Today, they come home. After 2,400 miles of racing, the sights of Paris are the goal of the world's best cyclists. Today, the landmarks are only a backdrop to the homecoming athletes. The leader of the pack will be part of tradition, part of history. Like in years before, he will be honored as the greatest athlete in his sport, the one who outraced, outboxed, and outlasted the finest. Today is a celebration, a final promenade for the world's greatest cyclists as the Tour de France comes to a close. Hello, everyone. I'm Adrian Karsten, welcoming you to ESPN's exclusive coverage of the 1994 Tour de France presented by Michelin. You know, over the last 3 weeks in the 2,500 miles, we've heard a lot about the three-time defending champion Miguel Indurain. We've watched the courageous performance of Marco Pantani. We will always remember the rookie Chris Boardman. But there are others who will not finish, will never, ever find their place on this podium. There are men like Dag Otto Lorzen, who at 37 years of age will finish for the final time today in his final Tour de France. But then there are men like Mark Sargent, who yesterday collapsed in tears. This race was just one stage too long. Phil Liggett, I think there are a lot of men, once they see the Eiffel Tower today, will have tears in their eyes.
I'll tell you the one man I will speak to when he gets across the finishing line, Adrian, that's the Belgian rider Guy Nullens. This is his 15th Tour de France. He's never finished anywhere. You'll never talk about him. He's a workhorse for his team. And you know, of those 15 tours, he's only failed to finish in 2 of them, and that was through injury. Guy Nullens now ranks second in the overall standings of all-time finishes in the Tour, and that's a marvellous achievement.
One of the greatest moments in sports, perhaps the ultimate for these fans, is when they come for the last blast down the Champs-Élysées.
Absolutely.
This morning at Euro Disney, a few new members of the Mickey Mouse Club. M-I-G-U-E-L. I wonder if they'll wear the ears into Paris. A couple other gentlemen who may not be as loose today because the last charge down the Champs-Élysées for the world's greatest sprinters is quite a spectacle. For Olaf Ludwig, Silvio Martinello, and this man, Jamaluddin Abdjaparov. Now, the first two are going to have to go a long way to beat what Jamaluddin did yesterday. Slow start, but a very exciting finish.
And we've got Van Zeller in the race too, and Sean Yates is trying to get through in the centre of the picture as well, but there's no sign yet of the green jersey. This is going to be an interesting finish, because it could well be Francois Simon going, but a rush at the end is Jan Zarada, and the green jersey's come from nowhere, and on the line it's going to go to the photo, but it looks to me as though that man, Jamaluddin Abdjaparov, just flew out of space there to get right up alongside Jan Zarada on the finishing line. They really are the fastest finishers in the world, and they timed that one to absolute perfection.
Today, Miguel Indurain will ride from Euro Disney into Paris in the yellow jersey, followed by 4 cyclists who gave us the greatest days of the Tour. Now Paul Sherwen is standing at the finish line.
You know, to me, this is the most beautiful finishing straight in the whole world, the Champs-Élysées. They only close this street down twice a year, once for Bastille Day and then for the final showdown of the Tour de France. One man's going to have very mixed feelings, though, today, and that's the sprinter Jamaluddin Abdjaparov. He's known both emotions on the Champs-Élysées. A couple of years ago, he was thrown to the ground just 100 meters from here. The year later, he came back to take a fantastic victory. But it's a very strange finish on the Champs-Élysées because every survivor of the Tour de France wants to get to the front. He wants to show his family and his friends that he was here on the sacred cobbles of the Champs-Élysées, going for victory to prove that he got around France. It's a great finish, and I'm sure that we'll see the sprinters fighting it out for one last time to take a last little bit of Tour de France glory.
Paul, Michel Dernice of Team Motorola is doing what a lot of us have done, taking our family to Disneyland. But now Daddy's got to go to work. And the last stage of the 94 Tour de France.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of the 1994 Tour de France is brought to you by Michelin, because so much is riding on your tires.
Like the other 21 teams in this year's tour, Team Gans members have certainly been depleted, but not Eddie Seigneur's stamina. He is the man moving up with the sunglasses on his head in the breakaway. Here's Phil and Paul.
So the riders coming through now to start their 3rd lap of 8 here on the Champs-Élysées, and the field trying to chase down this breakaway group of 5. Jörg Müller, Bo Hamburger, Arturas Kasputis, Frankie Andreu and Eddie Seigneur. And the lead now is up to a little over 20 seconds. And These are the 5 riders who broke away on lap number 2 of 8 here. And it was all started indeed by the rider in pink, Kasputis. And the gap is building. Well, Frankie Andreu told Paul Sherwen he was thinking of a possible victory on the Champs-Élysées. Although he's a reasonably good sprint finisher, I don't think he would ever match up to Jamaluddin Abdul-Japarov. So if anybody's going to win here today, I think they've got to win alone.
Well, definitely, because that man is so fast. I mean, the sprint he put in yesterday, over the last 5 or 10 meters, he was probably 5 kilometers an hour faster than everybody else. In fact, I was so surprised to see him come through at the last minute that I actually thought he'd misjudged it until we saw the photo finish afterwards from the helicopter. He seemed to come from absolutely nowhere. The only way to beat him, everybody knows that, is to launch the attacks and put his team under pressure. In fact, it's one or two of the other teams who are starting to organise the chase at the moment, because the Pulte squad, like every other squad in this year's Tour de France, has been depleted by abandons.
The whole pack of survivors in this year's Tour de France are leaving it again to just 1 or 2 riders to set the pace who have reason to do so. There's no point in the pack helping chase down these 5 men and then finding Abdul-Japarov taking the prize home with his Italian team. So they're going to make that team do all of the work to chase back these 5 if they can. And with 5 different teams also represented in this breakaway, well, immediately you have 5 teams who won't counter the move. There are 21 teams started the Tour de France, and you know there are 2 teams finishing with only 3 men and 2 teams finishing with only 4 men. It's been a tough one.
I tell you, I've got the stopwatch going on this breakaway at the moment, and in fact their lead is increasing quite rapidly as the chase seems to have numbed down a little bit. They go around the top there with 26 seconds lead. In fact, you can see the blue and red jerseys of the Motorola squad massing to the front there to actually slow down the acceleration of the main field when we come out of this corner.
There was absolutely no counter-attack out of that corner. Raul Alcala was there for Motorola. He eased the field around that corner to try and break the impetus. And at the moment, things are beginning to look very, very good indeed. Because of the nature of the Champs-Élysées, a long uphill and a long downhill, we very, very rarely see a breakaway succeed, but we're never short of riders who will try, because if you don't try, then you never will succeed. Bo Hamburger looking for his 2nd win of this year's Tour de France. He's had a wonderful tour this time. He's now 20th overall. And if his breakaway succeeded, he might even go 1 better than that. Shaun Yates of Great Britain just passing through the picture there, finishing now what is his 11th Tour de France and telling us it's his last. But I tell you, he's such a popular rider back home in Great Britain that I think if he does continue next season, he finds form like he's had this year, because he led the race for a day, and then I'm sure he'll be back in the Tour next year. Now we're on the back side of the circuit here. The 100 meters you see there will be when the riders are making the final sprint in the opposite direction. That's the main field coming away from the Arc de Triomphe. There it is at the top of our picture, and racing down towards the Place de la Concorde. There's the face of Kasputis looking over for some help. No problem. It's going to come through. Bo Hamburger happy to drive on. Just as a small turn at the front, he eases up and moves across and in, then goes through Frankie Andreu. Number 1, as he has been now for the last 4 years in the Tour de France, and the winner for 4 years too. Miguel Indurain just sits there, watches. He knows his tour is run and won. His lead over Peter Ugrimov, 5 minutes and 39 seconds, and Ugrimov riding very close to him in that big peloton.
Well, Phil, an intermittent rain continues to fall here in Paris, and the average speed continues to increase. Caution is the key as we continue in a moment. The situation so far in stage 21, here's the Michelin race summary. The field rolled calmly until the entrance to the Champs-Élysées, when they exploded into action. A 5-man break tore away from the field. Eddie Seigneur, Jörg Muller, Bo Hamburger, Arturas Kasputis, and the only American left in the race, Frankie Andreu, now have about a 50-second lead on the pack. The chasing field is being led by Team Pulte. They hope to set up Jamaluddin Abdul-Japarov for the win. This will be the start of lap 6. Here's Phil and Paul.
So the leaders are now coming in at the end of lap number 5 of 8 here on the Champs-Élysées, and the breakaway of 5 that was started on lap number 2 is still clear. The clock starts now, and as we go through, Frankie Andreu of the United States leads them through. Eddie Seigneur, Kasputis, Hamburger and Muller are the men in this breakaway. And the last time check we had was 47 seconds. And now we're going to find out whether or not they're going clear or being pegged by the bunch. But I can tell you there is a little bit of panic setting in amongst the teams of the 4 top sprinters in this race: Olaf Ludwig, Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, Jan Zurada and Silvio Martinello. And that's why those 4 teams now are trying to get to grips at the front of the race. But I have to say that the Motorola team have sent 5 men up to the front, and they've started to disrupt the attacks very, very successfully indeed. Look at this gap.
That's an incredible gap. It's obviously going to be over the 45-second mark, and Motorola are not the only people who've sent someone up, because there is also Francis Moreau, the former world pursuit champion. He's 4th or 5th in line there to stop the guys at the front, getting a good organised chase, and it's almost going to be on the minute. 57 seconds, they're moving clear, and there aren't so many riders there at the front actually putting a concerted effort in to chase down this group of 5 men who've been at the lead with 6 laps to go.
Well, Frankie Andreu has ridden 2 tours before this. He finished 110th in 92 and 89th last year, and now he's riding his 3rd and is about to finish it. So we now have the riders are on lap number 6, so we've still got 2.5 laps to go to the finish. That's about 19 kilometers still to race, and they've built a lead of 57 seconds over the field. It's a long time since we've seen a gap like this built over the field, which normally, almost by tradition, has a big sprint for the line and the best man wins. But this year, Paul, there have been 3 riders so outstanding in the sprints that the only way to beat them was to do a move like this.
Definitely, and if they'd had their teams with them, they would have been able to keep it all together. And everybody realised that this was the last chance they've had of getting a victory. It's been such a difficult Tour de France over the last 9 days because we've been in the mountains, and so many of the lesser riders haven't had the chance to shine, haven't had a chance to take the glory. And even yesterday, when I thought there may well have been a breakaway that could have succeeded, it went down to the sprinters, and it went down to Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov. This stage here on the Champs-Élysées is normally the stage for the sprinters, and maybe for once they're going to manage to outwit them and outfox them, and a 5-man breakaway can stay clear.
And Mario Kuma, former East German Olympic rider, now riding, of course, for Germany as a member of the German Telecom team, setting the pace, trying to get this race back into some sense of order, because his rider, Olaf Ludwig, the 1988 Seoul Olympic champion, is the sprinter on his team. But you know, although the average speed last time has dropped down to a mere 54.5 kilometers an hour, which is unbelievable, they are not getting any closer at all. The time check at the start of lap number 6 of 8, 57 seconds. You can see now with the gaps between the wheels down there that the Tour de France is now under extreme stress.
Well, this is a time when the riders in the main field will really be suffering. It's only a couple of laps to go in the Tour de France. They realise now that the Tour is almost over, and the riders who can, the riders who want to win the stage, will be coming to the front for their team to give every last little bit of energy they can just to notch up that speed 1 more kilometre an hour. The average speed at the moment on the Champs-Élysées is absolutely incredible. We're talking 54 or 55 kilometres an hour. That is an incredible speed, and these 5 riders at the front really don't seem to be cracking. This is Kasputis, an extremely strong man. You can see by his build that he's a tough rider. He's made for the flats. I was astounded to see him in the front over the Col de la Combière. Jorgi Muller, another rider who's a strong man on the flats. He's prepared to give everything. Every now and again you see that little twitch of his arm. That's just to let the riders behind know, I've done my turn at the front, come through quickly. That is a tactic they use in the team time trial when they normally race with their teammates. Today, these men are all teammates. They're fighting to stay away from that pack.
Paul, tactics still mean so much after 2,400 miles with only 8 to go. This race, today's stage of over 100 miles, still may be decided within a matter of feet. Back in a moment. Frankie Andreu, the last American competing in Paris, is trying to win the last lap of the last stage of the 94 Tour de France in front of 100,000 people.
And so the riders now approach the finishing line with 1 lap to go of this year's Tour de France, and the same 5 are leading, the same 5 who broke clear on the 2nd lap. Frankie Andreu now might well be sparing himself a little thought of a possible stage win. And Eddie Seigneur lost none of his strength. There's the bell. 1 lap to go. 1 lap to go in what has been a marvellous Tour de France in many, many ways. And Miguel Indurain will also appreciate the sound. But you've got to watch the road now, because the rain is beginning to just dampen the surface. It's nothing like heavy at the minute. But you know, it could well be in the next 5 minutes or so, because the clouds are very black indeed over the Tour de France. There's the main field lining up for the finish too. And once more, the telecom team have come to the front. But I have to say that the Motorola team, and you see Phil Anderson easing his back and looking over the field there, they've done a marvellous job. And Dagotto Lauritsen with TVM, you can see him on the red and blue flashes on his shoulder there, the oldest man in the race at 37, called in with less than 12 hours to go to the start from Norway. One of only 3 men finishing the Tour on his team, and one of the other team members is in the breakaway now.
And the gap has actually gone up this last couple of kilometres, up to 47 seconds as they go over on the Bell Lap with 1 lap to go of the Champs-Élysées. You know, these 5 riders may have done it. They really have to suffer now. It's only 6 kilometres to go. Eddie Seigneur at the front, he's doing a great ride at the moment. This is Kasputis in the pink and yellow jersey of the Chazal team. It really looked to me last time through here as if the impetus had gone out of the chase of the teams of the sprinters. They may well be resigning themselves to having lost the final stage of the Champs-Élysées today, but these guys here at the front still have to keep the pressure on.
Well, just look for yourself now at the faces of these riders. These riders now have faces of desperation. It started out as a tentative attack to see what would happen. Now they know on the last lap they could have pulled the surprise of the Tour de France with a breakaway like this. They're not racing for the final yellow jersey nor the big cheque of 250,000 English pounds. They're racing for the glory of the stage win in Paris and to outwit the sprinters who have dominated the big bunch sprints. Men like Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov, Jan Zarada, Silvio Martinello, and indeed Olaf Ludwig. They had to break away to beat them, and they've done it so far, but they've got to be ever so careful now on the cobblestones here. They will become very, very slippery indeed with this film of rain which is now falling on the Champs-Élysées.
And you know, it looks very much to me now as if the chase has gone from the telecom squad. They didn't have the power, and in fact one of the GAN riders there was just putting his arm up because he looks as if he believes now that that group of 5 men is going to stay clear. The attacks are coming along now. This is Rolf Sorensen who's going away straight away, marked by the little Mexican rider Raul Alcala. Alcala is there to protect the man in the break there. And Frankie Andreu, Sorensen's going down there. You can see the Champs-Élysées is starting to get a little bit slippy, and there also from the Carrera squad was Mario Chiesa.
There was some very cautious braking and turning there as they went round the top of the Champs-Élysées under the shadow of the Arc de Triomphe for the last time. Now they race right down the back of this beautiful road, dead straight and normally jam solid with traffic, as it no doubt will be about 3 hours from now. But this is the arrival of the great shop window of France's sporting year, the Tour de France, and you know they could even find themselves with a French winner here with Eddie Seigneur, the rider in white just off our camera. Kasputis comes through. Bo Hamburger had the taste of victory once and likes it and wants it again. He goes through and off. Jorgi Müller, former champion of Switzerland, when we once saw him slam into a wall at 50 miles an hour in a world championship, and he got up from that. He's in the breakaway now. And there's the group, and you know they could hang on.
I think they may well do, even though the last time check we got was down to 38 seconds. There's no team chasing them now. This is Thierry Marie from the Castorama squad, the Norman rider who's pushing it forward to try and get across to them. But still, the main pack is spreading across the road, which means the impetus has gone out of the chase. These riders have just got 3 or 4 kilometres to go with 30 seconds to lead. It may well be that they can pull it off. I can only keep my fingers crossed for them, because for one of these riders, it may well be he's going to walk away with what I think is one of the most beautiful stages to win in the Tour de France, the stage on the Champs-Élysées, the one that everybody knows.
Paul, Frankie Andreu could become the first American since Jeff Pearson, 1987, to win the final stage of the Tour on the Champs-Élysées.
For the last time, but I'll tell you, Eddie Seigneur is coming like an express train there. Chris Bourman from the GAN team gave them victory number 1 on the first day of the Tour de France, and Seigneur is going to close it with their next victory. And he goes by Frankie Andreu in sight of the line. Eddie Seigneur gives GAN the top and the tail of this year's Tour de France, and France end what has been for them a great tour in many, many ways. Seigneur gets it from Andreu, and that was a tremendous victory for him, as taking 3rd place is Bo Hamburger, Jorg Müller and Arturas Kasputis on the line. But what a marvellous finish this was, and look at this. We call it a sprinters race. Well, the sprinters had to break away to get 6th place as Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov winning for the 3rd time the green jersey of the Tour de France for the best sprinter in this race, ahead of Vyacheslav Yekimov, who takes 7th. Silvia Martinello will take 8th. What an amazing finish to an amazing Tour de France, and Miguel Indurain crosses the line too as the winner of this race. He shakes hands with his teammates for the 4th successive year. The only other 2 riders to ever do that, Jacques Anquetil and Eddy Merckx. Well, a tremendous finish to a great Tour de France as the riders now crowd around, the press crowd around these riders, and the rain still trying to come down, but it never did come quite enough to spoil a marvellous finale. Frankie Andreu felt he had to do that breakaway to win the stage. He was chased down by Eddie Seigneur, and there you can see Seigneur caught him, and as soon as he was caught, he knew he was beaten on the line. It's been second before, and I'm afraid, Frankie, it's second again.
So, Phil, the boys from Gone go the distance by winning the start, Boardman in the prologue, and the finish. Eddie Seigneur, who burned up the last 200 yards to pass Frankie Andreu, who just didn't have anything left. Indurain in 77th place overall on the stage. But when the record book for the 1994 Tour is written, Miguel Indurain will be at the top of the page. Piotr Ugramov in 2nd and Marco Pantani in 3rd. The emotions of a man who has absolutely nothing left. 200 yards from the finish. Had the race been that distance shorter, Andreu would have had his first stage win ever.
I mean, you have to ride hard to stay away. You can't really save too much, but the Chazelle guy in there, Kaspudas, I knew was a pretty quick sprinter, and so I wasn't sure how I was feeling after all these mountains, so I decided to go for it. I had nothing to lose, and I mean, I had tired legs, and I blew it 400 or 500 meters to go, and the Gone guy, Seigneur, is a good time trialist, and I mean, I saw him coming, but I was giving everything I had. I couldn't have gone any harder, so that's the way it is.
Well, what we saw here in Paris this afternoon proves that that final sprint down the Champs-Élysées is as much a signature to the 94 Tour de France as any one of the mountain climbs or the individual time trial. Phil Liggett, what we witnessed in that final sprint was so exciting, and it says so much about the transfer of power from one generation to the next.
That's right, Adrian, because Paul Sherwen and I have talked about this man, Eddie Seigneur, for 3 weeks now. He is a real talent. This was his first Tour de France, a fitting end for France as well. But there has been some good young talent in this year's Tour. Indurain isn't going to go on winning for much longer.
Paul, you have finished the Tour here yourself. Does the fact that they were averaging close to 35 miles per hour in those final 8 laps have something to do with the success of the breakaway?
That's the only way they could stay in front, but I really don't know how those guys managed to do it. They must have got rid of every last little bit of energy they had to stay clear here on the Champs-Élysées, because that's what they needed to do to stay ahead of the sprinters like Jamaluddin Abdul-Jabbarov, who would normally have their day here on the Champs-Élysées.
Well, only 2 other riders in the history of this race since 1903 have worn the yellow jersey 5 times. The king of cycling comes from Spain. How long will he reign? Miguel Indurain has won the Tour de France for the 4th consecutive year. From what we have witnessed, his domination could continue as long as he can hold off the next generation. The generation now ascending the throne of power in the sport that perhaps demands more of the athlete than any other on earth. For Phil Liggett and Paul Sherwen, I am Adrian.